Okay, welcome to INM 5173 topics in computer science module. So as you may have already know, this is the second module which comes after our first module on computer applications. Mainly, we are going to cover three main topics under this, which is programming, databases, and machine learning. So today's session, what I'm planned to do is give you basic introduction to about the course and how we conduct the course for this time. And then we will have a review on the material on the programming that we have done with the previous module. And then at the end of the session, we will have a quiz. Right. So having said that, I hope everybody knows me well because of the previous module. But in case if you want to contact me, not on my email address as well as mobile, you can use WhatsApp to communicate with me throughout the module for any of the matters. So having said that, so let's formally start uh, the module. So focus of this particular module is gives you the basic understanding about the computer science. Under the computer science, we are going to focus mainly on programming, databases, and machine learning. So with that aim in mind, there are a few things that we expect you to have at the end of this module. The first one is the basics of programming. So I hope that part we have already covered in the previous module. And then with that, we will further work on several other modules in Python, especially to cater the machine learning part or data analytics part. So with that said, we will have few sessions in the beginning where we focus on the computer programming part plus the related modules, which is we plan for machine learning part. And then once we finish, we'll focus on the databases part. So with these databases, we aim you to give you basic understanding about different types of data handling nowadays. So things have changed over the past few years, how people actually think and then make decisions based on the data. So therefore, the understanding of how the databases works and different types of databases are very important. So we'll have several topics. We'll talk about the databases. We'll start with the relational modeling, which is the traditional way of looking at the databases, and then we'll also discuss about the modern databases as well. Right. So once we finish that, we will focus on the basically machine learning, where you will learn how to make smarter decisions based on the data, right? So we are not going to go into in deep in machine learning, so which is the aim for advanced module, but we will go through the simple basics steps of machine learning, and even you will learn how to develop your own simple machine learning algorithms on a real world data set. So that's the aim. So there will be a small assessment component where you are going to use data set, and then based on the selected data set, you are going to decide on what pre-processing techniques that you need to employ for pre-process the data set, and then you choose appropriate machine learning algorithms to learn from the data. So that's basically what we are trying to do within this uh, around 10 sessions that I'm actually going to plan. So if you visit the LMS, I have also updated all the information that you need about the module, about the aim and objectives that we have covered, plus the weekly schedule. So starting from today, we will have in each week, you have some activity. So today's activity, as I told you earlier, we will have a online quiz. And then similar to that, I will update in the LMS the activity that you are supposed to do within the week as well as the deadline, right? Any questions on this part? But before continuing from this end, I'm going to stop the recording. So here are the primary references for this module, although there are like 4 main modules. We are not going to go into depth of any of this, but gives you the basic understanding of the computer science topics in programming, which is the first book normally I refer for programming part. And then the second book is on databases. Those who are new to databases and those who want to learn more, maybe you can also refer the second book on databases, which is the book normally when we use to teach database related. This is one of the books that we primarily refer. So that's the 7th edition, by the way. And the last 2 is on machine learning and data mining. So the first reference is more on understanding how machine learning algorithms in theoretically. The second book is actually more on practical aspect of machine learning. So those who are going to, eager to learn machine learning, I recommend start reading the second, third and the fourth references, which will help you to understand what is going on right now. So irrespective of where you are right now working, the material that we will discuss here will be very helpful for you in your day-to-day lives and also making informed decisions. So it's very important that whatever the things that we learn here, try to apply in practice. So that's the aim of this module. So having said that, I think we are ready to go. So our first session is today, which we will review what we have covered so far. So therefore, I'm going to go through the material that we have actually discussed in our previous module on computer applications. But then the idea is we revise what we have covered and then you are get ready for my coming sessions. So the next session, I'm actually going to look at some already existing libraries which we have not covered, including pandas, and also the numerical Python we have done, I guess, at least at some level. So those 2 libraries will start with, then we switch to databases, and then we'll back to machine learning. So that's the plan. So let's start with the Python programming. So this is, you can consider as a revision. And at the end of the session today, based on what I have covered, I will have a very small, quiz just to evaluate your understanding of programming. Right. Now, if you ask me like why Python, if you can look at the statistics, the currently anywhere, if you look at programming language rankings, the Python is always on the top. There are slight changes over the years, but you can see if you look at the statistics at least, maybe I can quickly show you one of the current ranking available just to prove my point, saying that, you can see Python is top for some time now. So this is called Tiob, a software quality company, which ranks the programming languages, Python top for some time now. So which is, I think, it is important that you also learn programming language, which we can use to improve. And then there are many other programming languages that go in. So in this module, we are going to focus on Python and also SQL. So which you will use in this module. So both the languages you can see it's in the top 10, which will very important that you get an understanding of these main languages. Right. So that's just to motivate you why you need Python programming, but there are many others. One is this is free and open source programming language, which supports many other paradigms like object orientation, functional programming, and so on. And not least, you can find extensively libraries for doing anything that you want to do. For example, uh, if you go to NumPy, which is one of the libraries, which you can see, how Python is used in other places. Quickly, I will share that information as well as supporting why you need to learn, Python. For example, these are like different areas where the Python, especially NumPy, used, uh, starting from quantum computing, statistical computing, signal processing, image processing, graphics, networks, cognitive psychology, bioinformatics, Bayesian inference, mathematical analysis, which I think as mathematical teachers, you can, focus on chemistry, geoscience, geographic processing, architecture, and engineering. So you can see many based on, Python. Not only that, that is actually for scientific domain. There are arrays, libraries which we will use nowadays, and also data science and machine learning. So you can see the data science and machine learning also quite extensively use Python libraries, right? So, so that's why one of the reasons why you should learn Python, also like brush up your skills. If you know Python better, that will be even a top paying job, right? So those who are thinking of switching your careers, maybe if you learn and practice, so that it's enough to learn Python for you to land a top paying job, right? So like in other programming languages, there are two modes normally we are using. One is interactive mode, which is you can type and get the result, or you can write it as a separate file. Those things we have actually discussed in the beginning, right? And main point is like whenever you need help, you can search Google or ChatGPT, but I highly recommend that you use the help function. The built-in help comes with Python, which is very helpful. And throughout the module, I used to recommend that because that's the latest and that's where you will get the more information. Right. Then when it comes to Python, the supports for different data types, starting with integers, floating point, complex numbers. So these are different number formats it supports. And then also it supports string, Boolean, and so on, right? If you want to know like how Python understand different data, so we can use type function, which will explain us the type of uh, the data. Now, for example, here we have type 508, which is basically a integer data type. So assuming that you have already have Python, maybe I can also just quickly have a look at use of Python. So simply I'm going to open Python idle environment. Right. And then this is my Python idle. That is the shell. And then you can just type it. I want everybody to just try this and let me know you remember what we have covered. So we have type, and then under the type, we can also use the type of data. You can see this is identified as an integer class. All the data types available in Python are classes, which we have, I think, the discuss in the previous module. But as soon as if you put decimal point, this becomes a floating point number. Remember, you don't even need a number after the decimal point. When you have a decimal point, Python consider this as a floating data point. Similar to that, you can also have string values like hello. You can use either single quotes or the double quotes, which you will use, right? So those are the different data types. So other than that, you can also have bool, which we have covered later on. Like, for example, if you say type true, which is Boolean data type, right? Strings we discussed, you can use single quotes or double quotes, or even use triple single quotes or triple double quotes. You're using single quotes for one-liners. If you want to print something in a single line, use single quotes or double quotes. If you need multi-line, then go for triple single quotes or triple double quotes. So, and why do you need to have like two representations? Sometimes single quote or double quote could be a part of the data. For example, this one. So what happens here? If you have something like this, and if you're trying to use, let's say, a single quote, which might give you a problem. Like, for example, if you say single quote to say what's your name, which is gives a problem because Python confuses with this. So whenever you have a situation like this, you use the other representation, which is in our case, the double quotes. The reason is then we have a single quote as a part of the string. Similar goes to the second one. For example, if you want to have dialogue within double quotes, you better use single quotes. So this is why we have some two different representations. Then we discuss about the variables in Python. Now, when you name variables, you have to follow some rules in Python. The variable name should start with a letter or an underscore. And after the first letter, you can have letters, underscores, or digits. And then you need to also remember, if you use the Python names, they are case sensitive, which means if you use my name in simple and my name with in capital, they are not the same. So remember, those are the rules that we have actually discussed. Then when you're using variable names, you cannot use any of these keywords, which is known as reserved words for Python. So for example, you can see most of the keywords in Python are lowercase letters, except for few like capital with a false, none, and true. So except for these three, almost all the others are simple case letters. Right. Then We also discuss the basic assignment. Usually in computing, we work on your right-hand side, which will assign to left-hand side, which will generally written like variable equals expression. So expression, you can have numbers like in first case, a equals 10. And then expression could be another variable like in the second case, b equals a. The third one could be algorithm expression like c equals a plus b. So whatever the values in a and b will be added, which you create variable c. Right. Then statements in Python, usually you can have combination of values like 1 plus 1, variables like a plus b, or even you can have calls to functions. For example, len hello, which is a function we use to count how many characters are inside, which is 5 in this case. Then Python operators. Now, when you want to perform different operations, we have to use different operators. Now, here are a list of arithmetic operators we have to use: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, exponentiation, integer division, and modular division. Just to remind what we did. For example, if you have two data points like 10 and 3, so 10 plus 3 will be 13, 10 minus 3 will be 7, 10 into 3, that is 30, 10 divided by 3, which is this value, 3.33 something. Right, these are the basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Then the power, right, 10 to the power 3, which you can write like this, which is 1000. Then 10 integer division by 3, which is you divide 10 by 3, you take the integer part, which is 3, because you have get 3.33, but the integer part is 3. The last one, modular, is remainder. You divide 10 divided by 3, the remainder is 1. Right. So these are known as arithmetic operators. Then when you have expressions like this, the order is important. So usually parentheses come first, then the exponentiation, multiplication, division, you have the same precedence. Addition, subtraction, you have same precedence. Whenever you have same precedence, remember to evaluate from left to right, except for exponent, because exponent goes from right to left. Right. So having said that, we'll move to the operation on strings. Now, like what we did earlier, if you think about adding and subtracting for strings, usually you will get an error, except two cases. If you have two strings and if you have plus, this is called concatenation, which glue these two strings together. And the next one is repetition. So you have if you have a string and a number and multiplication, which is repeat itself. So when you say fun into 3, it will have fun, fun, fun. For example, if I go with some examples, so for example, we can say, okay, yeah, hello. You can have like this plus world. You can see it glues together, right? So even the numbers like this, right? It glues together, combine the two things together. So that's what we call string concatenation. Then repetition. So fun is a string multiplied by 3, which you will get fun, fun, fun. So for example, asterisk, if you multiply for 30 times, this is how it look like. Right. So what you need to get from this is not all the operators work with the string, but some works. Right. Then we need to convert in the data types in between. For example, the first one for int 3.14, which we want to convert 3.14 into integer value. That is whole number. So what happens if you type like this, int 3.14, which tells you, okay, only integer part of this. So similar to that, when you want to convert into float or string, you have separate functions int, float, string, and so on. Right. Next, how do you interact with the users in Python? You can use input function. So for example, if you put input, you can notice that it is waiting for the user's input. For example, if I type my name, then immediately after that, it will output as a string value. So what you need to remember, whatever you enter, will get it as a string. If you're not sure, you can just put a number 10. It represents 10 with a single quote because input is always taken as a string value. Very important. So if you want to get somebody's name, let's say name equals, I can say input, right? Okay, enter your name, right? So whatever you input inside as a parameter, which will be displayed to the user. So we are expected to type the name. So let me say Sampath, and that is stored inside the variable name. Now, when you say print, let's say hello and name, which tells us, okay, hello, Sampath. Right. But if you need to take a number, then you need to convert. Like, let's say number equals input, enter a number. You remember to convert into either int or float, depend on your requirement. It's very important. Right. Okay. Right. So if you want to get a number, this is how it look like. And then let's say if you put 10, then print number will print as it is. If you take type, it will tell us it's a integer data type. Right. So that's about the input that we have discussed. And similar to that, we discuss formatted output. Right. Now, output in Python is usually you can use print, and you can print multiple value by, comma separated. Like, for example, I can say print hello and Sampath, and it will print like hello Sampath because you can have multiple values, right? The comma gives you a space actually. You can help print, and this will tell us exactly how this is. We can see here. Yes. So print at the end separation is a space. So you can notice this, right? And then, so for example, if you want to have a comma in between, we can say print hello world we can say separation, we can have comma. So what happens now, you can see we have hello comma world because we have changed how to separate multiple values. So that's a simple one. The next one that I would like to discuss is use of F strings. F strings means the latest way of formatted strings. For example, let me say we have a variable A1, 2, 3, 4.5678 9. So it looks like this. If you just print A, this is how it look like. But if we want to format it the way we want, like for example, if you want to say things like, okay, I want to evaluate A for 0 decimal point, looks like this. And you can notice that it will round off. So here F strings, curly brackets indicate that we work on variable and the variable is A, and this part will denote the formatting. For example, if you need like 2 decimal places, we can put 2F. F stands for floating point number. So you can see now the outcome is limited into 2 decimal places. And then you can also control the total number of characters. So if you put 12, for example, what it means is the whole number represented using 12 digits where 2 decimal places. For example, we can calculate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I hope now you got a clear idea. But then again, if you want to print with some text, easiest way is we can say F, you can say price is, and then you can have the curly bracket, which denotes variable point 2F, which I'm going to limit to 2 decimal places. So you can now see I have updated it with price is, and then I limit my number to 2 decimal places, which is clear, right? Okay, so that's about the formatting. The next one that I would like to discuss about Python is the control structures. So mainly when we work, you can have code where you're going to execute from top to bottom, which is called sequence. But then you will have selections and repetitions. So here we will discuss another data type, which is called true and false. Remember, true, the capital T should have the capital T, and false, you have to have capital F, which is known as Boolean type. And this is used especially when you have make a decision, right? And decision will be usually true or false. So now to do that, we need to learn the comparison operators. Here are the comparison operators where you can use it to compare two values. So for example, I can say, okay, we will take like this. Okay, I can say, okay, 6 less than 5, it says false because 6 not less than 5. What about 6 greater than 5? Yes, of course. 6, is it less than or equal to 5? No. 6, is it greater than or equal to 5? It says yes. Equal sign. So for example, 3, we will check whether 3 is equal to 2 plus 1, which is true. And we can say 6, is it not equal to 5, which is true. So these are the comparison operators which we can use, especially when we are making decisions. Next, You can also combine each of these comparison operators together with logical operators like and, or, and not. So AND operation will evaluate true when all the inputs are evaluated true. Operation will be true if any of the inputs are true, and not is always positive, assuming that x greater than y is false, right? So that means you check whether x is greater than 5 and you put not, right? Which will give you the opposite of this. Right. Next, control flow structures in Python. We are discussing about you can have branch statement like selection, or you can have repetitions. So if you start with the if statement, if can be used to make decisions. Together with if, we can have if else and elif statements. For example, in this here, we will discuss that you can use a if whenever the number is negative, which will make it a positive by multiplying number by -1. So that's what happens here. So if you look at the code for this, is you get a number from the user, and we have if selection here. If a number is less than 0, which is negative, then we multiply by -1 to get the absolute value of the number. So that is selection data structure. The second one that you need to know when you're working with the selections like this, you have to properly indent your statements, which will represent what is inside. For example, here, if, and then there are some spaces which indicate that this statement is inside if. Right. Okay, so now let's look at when you have two tasks to be done depending on the outcome. For example, here we get marks of the student, and if the marks is greater than or equal to 50, we say pass, otherwise fail. So if you look at the Python representation for this, we get the marks, and if marks is greater than or equal to 50, we say print pass. Okay, if this is true. If it is false, then you go to else part, then you print again. Right. Similar to that, what if you have nested selections? Here is an example. You can see we have 2 and 1 is inside, right? The other. So if you look at this, in this particular example, we have a selection. That means we take a temperature of water. If it is less than 0, we are going to say ice. If not, we check whether the temperature is less than or equal to 100. If say yes, it's water, otherwise it says steam. So that's what we want to implement. So you can see we have if temperature is less than 0, we are going to print ice. Otherwise, you have another selection statement. Again, another if where you check whether the temperature is less than or equal to 100. And then you print water, or else you print steam. Okay, a small exercise before we proceed. Sharing your answers. So let's go back to the revision. So now when we have nested selections like this, we discuss you can actually combine these nested selections, else and if, we can say a elif statement. And I have seen like most of you have submitted, you have used elif keyword there as well. Right. Repetitions in Python, we discuss mainly two loops, while and for loops. In while loop, we will have starting point, increment or decrement, and also the condition. So which is can be used to control a loop environment. So in this particular case, we simply print in numbers from 1 to 10. Therefore, we start with number 1, keep on increasing inside the loop, and we print the numbers. Right. Similar to that, we will also have for loops. Especially for loops are very useful when you know exactly how many times you are going to repeat, or you are going to repeat a sequence of objects. Now, to work with for loop, usually we have to first understand what range function is. So range can take up to 3 parameters. If you have just 2, that will indicate start and stop. So for example, if you have range 1, 5, which goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, not including 5. The stop is the last value. It goes up to the last value, not including that number. So you will have 1, 2, 3, 4. If you have just 1, we assume the starting point is 0. So we will have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you have 3, then start, stop, and step. So that means you start with 1. The next value, you have to increase the value by the step. So that 1 plus 2, that is 3. Then 3 plus 2, 5, but it should be less than 5. So outcome should be 1, 3. So that's the range function is. So if you want to print something 10 times, of course, you can use a for loop like this. For example, for I in range, I can say, okay, 1, 11. And then you can say print I, which will print numbers from 1 to 10. But let's say you want to print something, a name 10 times, right? Of course, you can use like this, print, let's say Sampath, which will print Sampath 10 times. But the best method is you can use for I in range, you can say 10, which exactly tell you how many times you are going to repeat. So if you say Sampath 10 times, it will print 10 times. Okay, I missed one single quote, right? So if you need 5 times, only way you have to do is just put 5 times. So that's all you need to remember, right? That's if you want to, repeat something for a fixed number of times. So the best one is you just say that how many times you need to repeat. If you say range 5, which will repeat 5 times. Right. If you want to understand why or when while and for loop should be used, if you know exactly how many times you are going to repeat, go for for. Otherwise, if you don't know, then go for while. Right. The next we discuss the jump statement, break, continue, and return. The break statement means in Python, whenever you meet the break, you will come out from the loop. So here it says when I is greater than 9, then you are going to break. So whenever Python meets a break statement, it will come out from the loop. The next one is a continue statement. In continue, it will go to the next iteration without following any of this after this. For example, when Python meets here, the continue statement, it will go to the next iteration. So for example, here, you go from 1 to 10, you try to print 1 to 10. And then if you a number divisible by 2, then you are not going to add it to the total. So which means whenever you have a even number, you are not going to add the even number to the total. So this code ideally should give us, right, the sum of odd numbers between 1 to 10. Right. Then about the functions, very important. For example, creating your own functions is fun. You can, let's say we want to print something. So we can say def, we'll say pattern. Let's say this one, I'm going to just repeat something for I in range, let's say 5. And then I will say, okay, print, I'm going to multiply by 5. So what happens here, if you call function pattern, which will print some pattern like this, right? Which is very useful to organize your code, simplify your code, and to have a manageable code. So we can create our own set of functions. How do you create? You will start with the def, and you will give a name for the code, and then you define any parameters you need. But always you should not use print. For example, you should use return if you want to save and proceed further. For example, I will say def add, I will say n1 comma n2. And if you say print n1 plus n2, the problem with this code is, let's say you are going to say answer equal add 10 comma 20, see what happens. Immediately we are trying to add and save it as answer, it will put 30. But if you try to print answer, you will notice that is nothing inside. So the trick that we are going to use, if you want to make use of that, instead of print, just say return. You just say return. When you say just for return, right? And then now you can save it. No issue. So remember, very important, right? Print statement, okay. But if you want to store the result and you want to move forward, better you use return method. Right. So that's about the returning statements. Then when you create variable within the function, it will not appear to the outside. Let's look at this code. So for example, a is equal to 0, and within this change a function, you set it to 1. You print a, change a, print a. Now what happens here? When you say print a, it will print 0. And when you call this function, it will set a to 1. But remember, this a is not visible to the outside. So therefore, although we have same a here, this a will not be visible to outside. So therefore, you get 0 and 0. Now, if you want to make it to the outside, then you have to define it as a global variable. So you will see global A. Now, when you run it, you will see little effects, right? So you will print 0 and then it will print 1. Right. The next one is modularization. Now, functions that we have created early, you can create a bunch of functions for particular task to be done. But then you can save the function as a separate file. These are called modules. That means reusable functions. Whenever you want to use reusable functions, you should use import keyword. Like I told you, like in Python, there are many other libraries out there. For example, if you want to make use of some math module, we have to say import math. And every time when you call, you have to use the math name. For example, let me take, yes, if you just say import math, then math dot square root of 2, that means we'll get 1.414. This is perfectly all right, or this is the general use. But remember, when you use import math, you might also expect to other functions to be seen. So what you can do is, instead of say import math, you can also refer only the items that you need. So for example, we can say, okay, only the square root of function is enough. So what happens? Now when you say square root of 2, right, you are getting the correct answer. The last part is sometimes if you use import math, always you have to say math dot square root, which is tedious. So we can say import math as m. Now we can say m dot square root, right? So that's about the modules, right? Last part, and what is important for your next session, I'm going to start with the data structures part, and I'm going to focus mainly two data structures in the revision. That is, I'm going to discuss a list and the dictionaries. There are others as well. You can refer what we have discussed so far. Right, now list in Python, what you need to remember is it's an ordered collection of items. The order will specify using something called an index. And Python, index start with 0. So the first item usually we say 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, and so on. But in list, you can actually, once you create, you can change. Therefore, we say it's a mutable data type. So let's just check what we have discussed, and the understanding of this is important for us for my next session. Therefore, let's start looking at how to work with lists. Few things you need to remember. Now, lists are, you give a single name for a number of items. For example, here we will say number list, and you are using square brackets, and then you comma separation to define the numbers. So we have 11 to 23, 45, and 15, which is what we have. So we have included several numbers inside the one single name. So if you print the number list, now you can see everything will be printed. And even you can follow to print one at a time, like for I in number list. And print I. Yes, can you hear me? Because I got a power cut, just to make sure whether you can hear me.